How you doing?
He's a home tool.
I had a book study I want you to do. So we'll just see how many.
Every time he like comes in or does something for himself, when you say my back, it's like, y'all like him, you all the time. I'm like, there's like,
When I say every day, I think you pay for
he's trouble serving. You know, he has to get, you know, the ball into the net. You know, great player.
Are you taking a little back in time? In her classroom.
I guess you would make it work for me. It's very much so. Exactly. You don't have to
I'd like to call the April 15th Granville Exempted Village School District Board of Education meeting to order. Please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. Please take the roll.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Ms. Shaw? Here. Ms. Deeds? Here. Mr. Crum?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here. Do we have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
please take the roll, I'm sorry.
Ms. Deeds? Aye. Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye. Commendations.
Good evening, everyone. We are thrilled to announce and extend our congratulations to the Granville High School students who were selected to perform at the prestigious All-Ohio or Ohio All-State Orchestra and Choir, and as well as our GHS Wind Ensemble who performed at OMEA. This remarkable achievement that reflects not only the immense talent of these students, but also their dedication and hard work in their field. In addition to their audition, they put in hours of work and practice culminating to their state performances in February. These students were selected among thousands of high school students across the state of Ohio. Join me in congratulating the following music students. Representing the All-Ohio State Orchestra, Auden Hedges-DeRoy, Ellie Huth Van Riet, and Owen White. Come on up. And then representing the All-Ohio State Choir, Isabel Busak, Sophia Shinka, Chloe Thatcher, Scarlett Woltz, and Meredith Bilbins. And if there are any representatives from the Wind Ensemble who performed as well, come on up. Several of you performed in the Wind Ensemble and the choir, or vice versa, so I know that you participated in several performances. The Wind Ensemble performed at OMEA, the Ohio Professional Development Conference, in February. This talented group of students worked hard to earn this opportunity, and they put forth an outstanding performance. Many thanks to the huge crowd that turned out to support them and the constant support of Granville Arts Boosters. What an honor it was to be selected to perform at this conference. Congratulations to all the musicians in this group. Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. It's like swag. I just keep just kidding. It's like Fridays where you get to put buck on your lamb. And then we're going to take a picture, but I would like to reference that all of these students are also being, taught by probably one of the best music departments in the state. So our music department is second to none, and they're talented students, but they also have great teachers. So thank you to their teachers who might be listening. All right.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Get one more. Thank you.
Next, we'd like to present our boys and girls swim teams that both had strong seasons. The girls, led by Coach Hillary Paulson, captains Lydia Sturgeon and Ainsley Laylaud Smith, finished a regular season of 14-1, falling just short to Gahanna Lincoln High. Our girls' team accomplishments included LCL championships, sectional tournament runner-up, district tournament runner-up, and 6th place finish at the state tournament with over 100 schools represented. Lydia Sturgeon was named LCL Swimmer of the Year, and Coach Hillary Paulson was named LCL Coach of the Year and OHSAA Central East Southeast Coach of the Year. The girls' team broke 7 LCL records in the 200 freestyle and backstroke, 200 individual medley, 100 breaststroke, 200 medley, and the 200 freestyle relays. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So, And Hillary does this all with, triplets. So just FYI, I mean, that's impressive. Tyler, you help out, I think. And then the Granville boys coach led by Tyler Paulson and the captains Eli Winterhalter and Buseo Alawale finished 11-4. The boys team accomplishments included LCL runner-up, sectional tournament runner-up, and 4th place finish at the district tournament. Coach Tyler Paulson was also named LCL Coach of the Year. Nolan Schneider broke the LCL record in the 200 freestyle. 24 of the 28 athletes qualified for the district tournament, where there were teams that had 22 top 10 finishes at the meet. The girls team had 5 girls advance to the state meet. Lydia Sturgeon competed in the 200 medley relay, placing 3rd place. 200 freestyle 6th place, 100 freestyle 6th place, and 200 freestyle relay 6th place, and earned 4 All-Ohio honors. Lily Hislop competed in the 200 medley relay, 3rd place, 200 individual medley, 14th place, 100 butterfly, 9th place, and 200 freestyle relay, 6th place, and also earned 4 All-Ohio honors. Grace Largent competed in the 200 medley relay, 3rd place, 200 freestyle relay, 6th place, and 100 breaststroke, 13th place, earning 3 All-Ohio honors. Sydney Laufer competed in the 200 freestyle relay, 6th place, and breaststroke, 26th place, earning 1 All-Ohio honor. Abby Westnidge competed in the 200 medley relay, 3rd place, and earned 1 All-Ohio honor. The boys team also had 5 boys advance to the state meet. Nolan Schneider competed in the 200 freestyle 10th place, 500 freestyle 12th place, and 400 freestyle relay 19th place, earning all Ohio honors in the 200 and 500 freestyle. Miles Baker competed in the 200 individual medley, 21st place, 500 freestyle 25th place, and 400 freestyle relay 19th place. Drew Bergstrom competed in the 400 freestyle relay 19th place, and Eli Winterhalter competed in the 400 freestyle relay 19th place. Seth Winterhalter was the boys team alternate. The teams are also looking forward to a strong performance next year. Let's congratulate our girls and boys. Line up just like our musician. Hillary and Tyler, come on up here, please. You have to look at it now. So, congratulations. Thank you. All right, we got to squeeze together.
1, 2, 3. Take one more. Thank you.
Tyler will take himself. Congratulations again. Next, I get to speak about our very own Treasurer's Department. On behalf of Auditor Keith Faber, we'd like to present Granville Accepted Village School District with the Auditor of State Award with Distinction. This award puts the district into a very select group. Their office audits approximately 6,000 entities per year, and less than 4% are eligible for this award. The Auditor of State Award with Distinction is presented to local governments, schools, districts, and other entities upon the completion of their financial audit that meets the criteria to be considered a clean audit. The entity must file financial reports with the Auditor of State's office by the statutory due date without extension on a GAAP accounting basis and prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. The audit does, if the audit contains any findings for recovery, material citations, they're not allowed to get this award. So clean audit, very good job. This award represents the hard work of the Granville Exempted Village School District staff, employees, who make every effort each day to attain accounting excellence. What this truly means is that across the entire organization, you have the people and processes in place that understand fiscal responsibility and accountability. Specifically, we want to recognize Brittany Triola for her leadership, professionalism, and exceptional commitment to fiscal integrity. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Don't you get a name?
Your third finish. Yeah, right. So, congratulations, Ricky, well deserved. I know you worked very hard at that, so congratulations. That concludes our accommodations. This is the time that you might choose to try. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings.
If only they got to the bullpen.
Congratulations. Thank you, guys.
Karen, we're getting set up, but you're almost done. Okay? Okay, so as Mr. Welker sets up the presentation, we actually have someone zooming in. Karen Jackson is from Volpert, which is the organization that provides our, there you go, our enrollment reports and land use reports, and have completed some facility assessments for us in the past. Karen Jackson is here representing Wolpert, and she is going to take us through a presentation. This is an annual presentation, so we've done this now 3 years, and it's best when you have trend data to look at, and so this is a nice part of having this data over and over again, so we can adjust our projections over the years to get a little bit more of a fine tooth or a fine point to the reports. So Karen, can you hear us? Nope. We can't hear you yet. We're working on it. Not yet. We can't hear you yet. We're working on it.
How about now?
Can we hear you now? No.
So, here's something here.
Hold on.
How about now?
You can, we know. You can hear us, but we can't hear you. I mean, there you go.
Hey, Amy.
Great. There we go. All right, welcome, Karen.
Hi, thank you. Should I share my screen or do you
Yes.
have a copy of the presentation ready?
Go ahead and share your screen. I thought that might be the best way to do that.
Okay, no problem. I'm watching the live stream too, so I can thing up there. Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Well, as Jeff mentioned, I'm Karen Jackson with Wolford, previously Cooperative Strategies, which is why the first slide says Cooperative Strategies on it. We've been doing this work with Granville for the past, I believe, 3 years, but we do demographics work all over the country. It really is a nationwide business. So the first thing I'm going to start with are the enrollment projections, and then I will get into the housing study, which is a little bit more exciting. So our enrollment projections use the cohort survival method, which looks at historical enrollment grade by grade, year by year. We use 10 years of historical enrollment to project 10 years forward. We also use the resident live birth counts to project kindergarten 5 years later, which I'll get to in my next slide. The enrollment projections inherently consider things like any housing growth that has occurred in the past, any bumps or declines in over the past 10 years. And we also look at census data sets. Moving on, the map on the left shows our zip code boundaries. So we do get the birth data from the health department based on zip code. That is the smallest geography that it comes in. So on the left is a map. Your district is in pink compared to the zip code boundaries that your district touches. The greatest zip code that your district is in is 43023, although you do have little bits and pieces elsewhere. Looking at the map or the table on the right, this is showing the counts of births by year since 2004 for each of your zip codes. This year we do something a little bit different. In the past, we have used 43055, which is a Newark zip code, as well as 43023. This year, we are only using 43023, which is that Granville prominent zip code. Something that I want to note that we'll come back to later is in 2021, we had a large jump in births, more so than we've seen pretty much ever in 43023. We had 116 births occur in 2021 from your residents. So like I said, I will come back to that, but I just wanted to point that out because that is significantly bigger than what we've seen over the past couple of years. Moving on, as I mentioned, the enrollment projections use the cohort survival method, and that looks at the cohorts or grades of students as they move through the system, such as like the class of 2025 and so on. So if you look at this chart, this is showing the percentage of students that you are capturing year after year. If we look at this bottom row, that's supposed to say 2022, 23, I don't know why I didn't copyright, to 23, 24. So that is last year to this year. From last year to this year, you have captured 135% of the births that occurred 5 years ago. From kindergarten to first grade, you captured 106%. So last year's kindergartners to this year's first graders, they gained about 6% in students. And then you can look down the line and see the percentage of students that made it to the next grade that next year. Anything over 100% is going to show an increase in class size from the previous year. Anything that is under 100% is going to show declining enrollment in that class size. This really just shows the methodology at work. This is what we use to project enrollment forward. So looking at our historical enrollment, this is showing the historical enrollment by grade by year for the past 10 years. Something that I like to do when looking at these charts is look at them diagonally because it's showing the same group of students moving through the system. So this year, let's see, your largest class is in the 8th grade at 226. In 2022-23, they were not the largest class, they were the second largest class at 224. The year before that, they were exactly 224 again. And you can see where they started in kindergarten in 2015-16 at 148 students. Looking at our historical enrollment using our grade bands, you can see at the elementary level, the K through 3 level, we've gained about 100 students over the last 10 years, and then so on as you go down the line. So we also look at other enrollment, such as enrollment to community schools and those that are homeschooled. So on this slide, we just show those open enrolling out of the district on the top, and then the homeschooled students on the bottom. And then this is showing our projected enrollment compared to the historical enrollment. So on the left in red is our historical enrollment. You can kind of see some bumps, especially a little bit of decline in 2020, just like all of your neighbors had. And then moving forward, we saw an increase, and then last year a slight decrease. We have 3 different projections, a low, moderate, and high. I am going to focus on the moderate for this presentation tonight, but you can see overall the moderate and high are showing growth, and the low is showing a slow decline. So looking at our projected enrollment, we are projecting growth over the next 10 years by just under 200 students. So 24-25, you can see the counts of students. This 26-27 number is what I wanted to circle back to with that birth data. So if you remember, in 2021, we had 116 births occur within that zip code. That translates directly into this especially large class in 26-27. So that is definitely something to watch. That is the largest kindergarten class, ever for the district. So that'll be something that we need to continue to watch, and you can see as they make their way through the system, they remain a very large class within your district. Oftentimes we get the question, well, these numbers are great, but how do we know what this means? So in this table, I'm showing the enrollment compared to your program capacities. So on the top, we have the actual numbers for each school, and then at the bottom, the utilization percentage. So at the elementary level, we are projecting, again, growth. When in 10 years out, we will be at 99% of our elementary capacity. So very, very tight in that building. At the intermediate school, we are seeing some overutilization, especially in year further out, in year like 6 or 7. We're seeing utilizations over 100%. At the middle school, that's a pretty big building, so we aren't seeing a lot of overutilization, but you can still see some of that growth. And then at the high school, we're kind of seeing a sustained right around 90% for the next 10 years. So as enrollment continues to change, these are just some factors to consider, along with the projections. There are things that can inherently just change the projections, such as any boundary adjustments, new schools. Preschool offerings is one that we've seen kind of across the state that have changed our enrollment projections. Any interest rates or unemployment shifts, any unplanned new housing activity, any housing activity that we didn't know was coming, and of course pandemics. Nobody could have projected what occurred during the pandemic.
Okay, real quick before
moving on to our student potential, this is the housing study.
Oh, wait. Hey, Karen.
We do use a different methodology for the housing study. This is based on student yields rather than that cohort survival enrollment projection. A student yield, very simply put, is just number of kids divided by number of houses. So in my little sample street here on this slide, we have 10 homes and 5 students, so that gives us a student yield of 0.5, or 1 student for every 2 units. We do take this one step further and look at your student yields based on age of home. What we have found doing this work nationwide is that really there is a trend. When a home is built, we don't see an influx of students from those homes right away. It does take a couple of years before we see any significant number of kids coming out of those homes and impacting. So on the left here, we have our student yields based on both age of home and the assessed value of the home. All the housing data was provided by the county for us, so that's where those assessed values come from. And looking at this, if you look at the far right, this is what we're using to inform our yield model, which looks at that age of home compared to the student yield. So on the right here, this is the same information that's shown in this total column. and this is just our yield model, and this is what we use to forecast enrollment. So on the right, we have a recorded yield in gray, that's kind of in the background, and then in red, we have the line of best fit or our yield model, and that's what we're going to apply to every single family home in the district based on its current age to forecast enrollment forward. Something that we found is after a home gets to around 35 years old, we do not see much fluctuation in student yield year after year. In your case, it hovers right around 0.5, which is convenient because the average of homes older than 35 is 0.5 students per unit. So within this model, once the home reaches that 35-year mark, it is given a flat yield of 0.5 students per unit moving forward and into the future. So we start by looking at all of your existing housing. On the left is a map of all of your existing housing. Anything in green is going to be single family, which is the vast majority of your housing. Pink, there aren't many, but you do have some apartment complexes within the district. That dark pink or purple is showing your condominium complexes, and then anything in gray is showing age restricted or like 55 and up homes that we do not expect to have students out of. The table on the right shows the student yields this year as well as the last 2 years for the district. So for apartments, we're yielding 0.15 students per unit. Apartments tend to have fairly low yields in comparison to like a single family, so that's not uncommon. For condos, we see 0.05 students per unit. Again, that's not very uncommon. Condos tend to have less than apartments. And then at the subdivided single family level, we are seeing 0.69 students for every single family home in the district. So looking at this the past couple of years, the single family yield has not gone up or down. Really, we've seen 0.69 across the board. Same with condos. The apartments have gone down this year compared to the last 2 years ever so slightly. Keep in mind, I think it was 35 students last year that led to the 0.18, so it really hasn't declined much. Moving on to our existing housing developments, you have a few of them. The biggest one, or the one that's going to have the biggest impact, is of course Willow Bend, just because it has the most units and it's single family. If we look, like, let's go left to right, top to bottom. This one, 101 at the top is Mockingbird Hill. We're expecting 10 units to come out of that, and the developer is expecting that to be complete in 2026. That Mockingbird Hill has been around a while. This has been on our radar since we started doing this work. Up here is our 4578 Phillips Road. This is a very small little housing development with 4 units. Over here by Denison is our Denison faculty housing, expected to be 70 units, but again, these are apartments, so we are not expecting a lot of kids to come out of them. We have 2 small age-restricted developments down here, 98 and 99. These are shown in the gray down here. These are both under construction, but we are not expecting any students to come out of them as they are age-restricted. Willow Bend, of course, 67 units. We are expecting over 100 students to come out of that when it reaches its maximum. And then when it gets all the way through our yield model and it's mature, we're expecting 31 students. And then the last one is new this year, is the Village Roots in Granville. This is an existing community right off of Broadway. They're opening it back up for additional development. So they are showing 10 additional homes in this area. So we included that as well, and that's right here, just southwest of Denison. So along with the developments that are planned and proposed, we also look at a full build-out study. So essentially, what would your district look like if every tract of land that could be developed is developed, and you look more like a pretty big Upper Arlington or Grandview, something that's landlocked. So on the left, we have our existing land use. This is what we use to inform our vacant developable land on the right. And in the middle, the table just shows the acreage by land use type within the district. In the map on the right, this is showing our vacant developable land. Anything in blue is showing just normal vacant land. It's not necessarily adjacent to sewer, any existing infrastructure, we're expecting that to be developed later than what is in yellow, which we are considering high development potential. Those yellow tracts of land are either adjacent to existing sewer and water infrastructure, which is usually a big indicator of housing development. It's also, a lot of it is already owned by developers, or there are talks of developing it. So you'll see as we go through this, there are, that does weigh into our study quite a bit. And down here on the south east section of the district, we do have more high potential land due to annexations. This land is being annexed into heat, which allows for higher density housing. So our full analysis does have 4 different models, but I'm going to focus on the 40 units per year build out model. This is showing what your enrollment would be by housing type should 40 units be built every year out of that vacant developable land. We released the existing planned and proposed developments into the model based on when the municipalities or developers tell us that they are going to be finished and occupied. But the vacant land that doesn't quite have plans for yet, we do, that is what that 40 units per year build out model means. That is only for the vacant developable land. So if you start bottom to top, the bottom section is showing your enrollment from your existing subdivided single family homes. We're currently in a plateau. We do have some of those newer homes on the far east side, like the River Ridge, that are playing into that. Beyond that, we are seeing a steady decline in enrollment from those existing single family homes. Right above that, this is our non-subdivided single family homes. These are single family, but the vast majority of them, they're like rural residential homes, so the vast majority of them are already over 35 and beyond our yield model. These pink sections, which are pretty small, but you can kind of see them in there, are our apartments and condos. We do keep those flat. We typically don't see big swings in apartment and condo yields year after year, and we can kind of see that looking at your yields. We're at 0.18. This year we're at 0.15. Again, that is a difference of just a couple students because you don't have that many apartment units to go from. Right above that, this light green section is your enrollment from your developing single family section. So this is going to include that Mockingbird Hill and Willow Bend developments in there. As you can see, those developments as they exist today are not quite enough to overcome that decline. They aren't totally offsetting, although they are kind of causing flat enrollment. Right above that are your students. The black line is showing students coming from out of district. We do leave that flat, assuming you'll have a similar number of students moving forward coming from out of the district. And then these next sections are where things kind of get interesting. So this first gray section is showing the enrollment from the high potential vacant developable land. Again, this is land that is either already owned by a developer or land that has been talked about developing, land that's been annexed into heat, for example, is included in that, and so on. So that's that big gray section, and then above that, the blue section is showing the future development from the vacant developable land that has yet to be discussed to get us to a full build-out study. So just as with the enrollment projections, we are showing the impact to facilities based on that student potential analysis. So on the top, we have our enrollments, and then down below are our utilizations. So looking at the elementary school, we are showing higher enrollments 10 years out, very similar to the enrollment projections in the high 90s. So we're showing in the next 10 years that building is going to be very tight. Looking at the intermediate school, we are showing overutilization starting in 2028, 29, with 100% and moving forward, remaining over 100%. At the middle school, we're showing decent utilization for the next 10 years, although things will probably start getting tight beyond that 10 years at that building. And then at the high school, we are showing high enrollments 10 years out, again, 97%. 10 years out as we start to see some of that growth from the vacant land that has yet to be planned and proposed. And that is all I have. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I'm sure we have. Can you hear me, Karen?
Can you hear them, Karen?
I can hear you.
Okay, well, maybe I can relay.
Maybe turn on your YouTube volume.
Yeah, translate.
So I think one of the things that I'd like to point out is that, a couple of, when we first started this enrollment process, the elementary was actually above capacity, and then we opened up the two classrooms in the back of the building that opened up space and dropped it down. And then we also had kind of a stalling where we had that one large classroom that had our kindergarten class that came in at 180, and then it kind of dropped down to the 140s again. So we kind of benefited from that slowing of enrollment.
Did you hear any of that, Karen?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they were referring to the build out at the elementary where we had the 2 additional classrooms that opened in the exterior building. And then we also, thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'm coming over here so that you can hear me better. Basically, what I wanted to point out is in previous reports, the elementary and intermediate school showed a little bit more growth earlier on in the projection. But I think we've benefited from opening up that back building, which had 2 additional classrooms, opening up some more space. We had that large kindergarten classroom, but that didn't stay at that level. It dropped back down into the 140s, which has helped us modify our enrollment projections, which gives us a longer runway, I guess. And is that what you're seeing as well?
Oh, absolutely. It gives you more time to plan, for sure.
Which, the board has already engaged with Fanning and Howie to do a facility master planning process. And part of that process is to plan effectively before you're hit with additional students. And so all this report does is say that we have a little bit more time. It's not as urgent as we initially maybe thought, and we're going to continue to watch. We're going to plan in the in-between so that we have the plan ready for when the eventual students come. The other thing that I wanted to talk specifically about was some of the conversations about the annexed portion of Union Township that Heath now has. We are starting to get some better idea of what might go into that space, although no plans have actually made it through Heath planning. So that Russell property and Foster property down in the southern area of the school district, we know for a fact that that is going to drive significant enrollment in the future. But again, even that, with the lack of water and sewer available, is still going to be pushed out several years. So that's not a question, that's me just getting some talking points out there for Maria. Questions from the board? Yes, I'll stay here.
This is super important stuff for us to be able to figure out where we're headed and the timing of it specifically and how that dovetails with our feasibility study and so forth. I've got like a list of questions and things like that, but I almost think it'd be better to do it a little bit offline if I can find a time to call Karen or Zoom specifically with Karen, because I think that might be more productive as a conversation than trying to relay here or so forth.
Sure.
If that's okay with you, right?
Well, and I think what we would do is have a couple board member, representatives there so that we can get those questions answered.
I have more of a general question. I see that you have 2, like the projected use of buildings. Why not just combine them into one? Like, why don't we have the enrollment and the housing and have one like projection as to how our building uses?
Okay, so did you hear it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great question, and we get that all the time. The fear with, not fear, but the problem with combining them is we would be double counting students. So with the enrollment projections, we are using that historical enrollment, and any housing development that has occurred in the past would be naturally baked into that. And we would be using that to project growth forward. If you look at the survival ratios, that's a good illustration of it. If you have seen growth in the past from housing development, those would be apparent in the survival ratios. Like, what's that one subdivision?
Park Trails.
River Ridge?
Park
Is that it?
Park Trails.
Yeah, River Trails. That one, we saw, when that came online, we saw big bumps from that. The student potential, like the student yield methodology is only looking at 1 year. So if we were to combine them together, we would most certainly be double counting kids. Whether that would be kids from a house, it can't be 1-to-1, if that makes sense. So we have to look at them separately. Now, we did provide Brittany a table that shows our projections compared to all of 4 of our models, and they are actually very, very similar moving forward, at least over the next 10 years. The numbers are pretty similar. They're not exactly the same, but they're close.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's one of the keys, is you've got this birth survival, and you've got the housing growth, right? And you have to figure out how to meld them and blend them and things like that. And I think just a generic housing growth one is not nearly as accurate as we can get granular on the individual developments. Brittany, I know, has been doing a lot of great work along those lines, really to drill in, like, as we see possible plans and things like that, exactly how many houses. I think also a lot of the analysis and kind of math behind it is driven by Park Trails, because that was our huge development that drives the curves effectively and so forth. And I think going forward, it's gonna be a little different, right? Because we've got more expensive houses effectively, right, than when Park Trails was built. And so I think we don't quite know, A, what happens to the Park Trails houses as they roll over, like what kids are in there and what age are they, right? Because we haven't seen very much of that happen. The Park Trails kids are graduating high school now. As new kids move in, right, they're pretty pricey houses, right? So it's probably not like early families. You know, it's probably not first job out of college that you're buying a $500,000 or $600,000, $1,000 house, right? And I think that might be true with our new developments too, right? If those are priced at $500,000 or more, it's not like just starting a family. It's more like a little bit later in your career, so you have the income to afford that. And so that's where I think we just need you as our best judgment and kind of keep our eye on it and have some models that will allow us to kind of flexibly introduce that stuff. But there's great work that's both from the enrollment projections, the birth survivability, as well as the housing development.
Well, and from my vantage point, one of the things I look at the 2 reports is, you know, one, the historical enrollment is very helpful in the HR world. You know, you're looking at how many kids in the near future am I going to need to have teachers allocated towards. The land use is really on the facility side. You know, looking at the growth that, yeah, you're going to also plan from you know, an HR perspective, but really, do you have the facilities necessary? And could one, I mean, Thomas, your point is Park Trails was a very disruptive subdivision in the context of growth. So we went from around 30 or 40 homes per year to almost 100. Okay, and so, you know, there is a subdivision right now being discussed that is of that magnitude, or 100, maybe 100 homes even to the north of that, of what Park Trails was. So being prepared for that disruption is exactly what the facility master planning process is designed to do.
Yeah.
So the facility master planning process will kick off in the fall of 2024. And it will involve the entire community to actively plan and talk about what we want to look like from a school district moving forward and what type of education we want to be providing to our students. So it's not only just facilities, but it's also the type of education that we have happening within the 4 walls of the buildings. So that process, I think, you know, as much as we can talk about that facility master planning process starting next year, we need to, because we want to have as much community involvement as possible. But I view those reports as equally beneficial in the context of solving 2 different problems. in my world, or planning processes. Okay, any other questions?
I'd love to follow up later if you
Okay.
can set that up.
We can follow up with you later. Okay.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
Karen.
Karen. We appreciate you being here and having fun with the technology.
Yep, thanks everyone.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you. As Glenn is changing over slide decks, I'd like to introduce Shelley Bailey, who is a member of our tech department. She is a systems administrator. She's behind the curtain. She's like the Wizard of Oz, you know, who is constantly looking over everyone's shoulders, except for Glenn's, because she can't see over Glenn's shoulders.
There better not be any issues in this
Yeah.
presentation.
Hopefully there's no issues.
Yeah, but Shelley does a fantastic job, and we certainly appreciate her diligence in trying to keep us in a secure position. So thank you very much, Shelley.
It's definitely been an adventure so far.
Yes.
Again, as Jeff said, my name is Shelley Bailey. I'm the systems administrator here for the IT office here at Granville. Part of my job responsibilities include managing the systems used to harden our cybersecurity posture. I'm here tonight to speak to you about what we have implemented so far. Please be aware that as I speak, I'll share our methods of protecting the district, but I don't want to disclose the specific tools that we're using so I don't compromise the district's security integrity. So I'm going to run through about 10 minutes of slides, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. What is cybersecurity? An effective cybersecurity program protects the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data, systems, networks, and eliminates or reduces risk. This effort is coordinated through people, processes, and technology, along with using layers of controls to provide defense in depth. These controls include administrative controls, which are processes and management, logical or technical controls, which would be an example, firewalls, scanning and monitoring, and physical controls, which would be door locks, restricted access, and security cameras. This map is a representation of all K-12 cybersecurity incidents reported in the United States between 2016 to 2022, with over 1,600 reported incidents. This visual helps to drive home that threats against schools are real. An interactive version of this map is available on k126.org. Why are hackers targeting schools? Schools have a goldmine of both student and financial data that can be held for ransom or sold to criminals to be used later in identity theft attempts. Financial data, student data, and personal records containing personally identifiable information, or PII, such as social security numbers, are all irresistible to these criminals. K-12 is exceptionally vulnerable because of the growing increase in dependency on technology. Typically, there is not enough technology staff to effectively support this technology. There are often low or no funds to take on cybersecurity measures, and often there are weak or no administrative policies to enforce these measures. Cybersecurity is everyone's job, including staff, students, teachers, and even parents. Internal threats, whether unintentional or malicious, pose one of the biggest security risks. We have been working to educate our staff and students on recognizing different types of threats and how to avoid them. All stakeholders are encouraged to report suspected incidents to IT as soon as possible. We provide monthly phishing training and an annual cybersecurity awareness training course to our staff. Beginning in May, any employee that does not pass the monthly phishing simulation will be assigned remedial training. IT staff take part in ongoing training and workshops to stay on top of the latest trends and understand the latest threat landscapes. Our district is a member of the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. We subscribe to threat intelligence and updates from this organization, as well as the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, as well as other organizations such as K-12-6. A common entry for ransomware is through a malicious email. To mitigate this type of attack, we have implemented various tools to secure our email. Anti-spam and anti-phishing policies have been created, which will automatically monitor and score incoming emails and route those emails appropriately according to the score. We also manage an email allow and deny list, and any email that has a hyperlink or attachment is scanned before it's delivered. emails that are scored safe or delivered, and risky emails are quarantined. Sometimes questionable emails do slip by the filters, so we provide a tool with an Outlook for students and staff to report malicious emails. We follow best practices for identity and access management and use the rule of least privilege and role-based access control, meaning our staff only have the access they need to be able to perform their jobs. We do not allow administrative rights on district devices, and only IT staff can install programs or configure district devices. Accounts are disabled upon separation from the district, and accounts are audited annually for unnecessary privileges or for sale accounts. Configuration of mission-critical systems may only be carried out by administrative IT staff, and most of these systems are protected with multi-factor authentication. Additionally, VPN access is limited to approved users based on need, and the connection to the district is encrypted. This is my favorite slide. All employees are enrolled in multi-factor authentication, and most are using an app-based software token, which is currently the most secure method of MFA. All employees and students have a unique login name and password. If a compromised account is detected, we follow incident response best practices and immediately reset the end user's password and then communicate with that affected user on how to proceed. Next one. Our networks are segmented into virtual local area networks, or VLANs. Student traffic and staff traffic are separate, and mission-critical systems are also on a separate VLAN. We use physical port security, meaning unused ports are disconnected and then reconnected at the network closet when needed. We block insecure traffic and ports where appropriate. We use Wi-Fi 6 technology and have separate SSIDs for staff, students, guests, and volunteers. Our main data closet is secured with limited access, which is logged and monitored, and we receive a real-time notification when someone enters this room. All data closets have security camera coverage. All staff and student files are housed in the cloud through multiple cloud storage vendors. We use enterprise backups for our servers, and backups are conducted nightly. Backups are scanned for malware, stored off-site, and are air-gapped and immutable, meaning the archived data cannot be modified by anyone. Network switch configurations are also backed up nightly and are also accessible off-site. Data restoration is tested often. Finally, all emails are archived and stored following data retention policies. We use several mobile device management systems which allow us to automate imaging, deploy policies and updates, configure software and monitor and disable devices remotely. Device storage is encrypted by default. All Windows devices receive the latest updates on a monthly cycle through an automated deployment. Chrome devices are updated as the latest stable operating system is released. Servers are patched monthly or immediately if a critical patch is released. Other software is patched as updates are released by the vendor. This is a big slide. Our Information Technology Center provides a firewall for their internet connection at the network edge. We have an additional on-site next-generation firewall for both the ITC connection as well as a redundant internet connection. Firewall policies are continually monitored and updated. We implement geo-blocking, meaning traffic from countries found by industry experts to be an elevated risk for advanced persistent threat or cyber terrorism activity is blocked at the firewall level. We use a content filtering system on district devices which allows us to maintain compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act and provides for student safety. Websites that pose a potential threat to safety, a threat to the network, or may compromise our CIPA compliance are proactively blocked. We also provide a secondary monitoring system that allows teachers to monitor and block student activity from within their classroom. We have various methods of network and endpoint monitoring, including EDR and XDR, which is endpoint detection and response and extended endpoint detection and response, which perform real-time scanning on all Windows devices. An infection is quarantined immediately, and we are notified for follow-up. Our next-generation firewall also features intrusion detection and prevention, allowing for attacks or incidents that it detects to be mitigated automatically. We have several incident monitoring and compliance tools available through our Office 365 subscription. We have most recently implemented a Security Information Event Monitor, or SIEM, which collects and analyzes event logs from various devices and alerts us to potential issues. Additionally, we have several network monitoring tools that can detect and report outages or bandwidth issues. We have dashboards displayed in the IT office so we can monitor these at a glance. vulnerability plus a threat equals a risk. We cannot eliminate threats, but we can eliminate vulnerabilities to reduce risk. And to do this, we use various scanning tools and mitigation tools. Our ITC scans for vulnerabilities on devices facing their network, and we also use that same tool to detect vulnerabilities on internal devices. These scans apply recommendations from the Center for Internet Security and the National Vulnerability Database, and look for common vulnerabilities or exposures, or CVEs for short. If the tool finds a vulnerability on our system that matches a published CVE, it reports that vulnerability back to us so we can take action. Vulnerabilities are ranked according to the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or CVSS for short. Critical level vulnerabilities are remedied immediately upon detection. High and medium level vulnerabilities are addressed as soon as possible. And again, this was a very high level overview of our methods to harden the district's cybersecurity posture, and not everything that we're doing is covered here in detail. And Lynn and I will take questions if there are any.
Obviously, you can tell who has the most intelligence on this topic.
The map was a little scary with all the pins on there and things like that. There are a bunch of different colors represented on there. Help me understand, like, I saw a lot of green ones, and I'm not sure what other colors they were. Like, what is the Pareto chart of, like, this is the most attacks on school?
It's the various different types of attacks, like ransomware is one color. I think like a account breach is another color. But if you go to that website, you can actually play around with like the different pins. And
So that'd be like ransomware is a popular one. Is that on a specific device, on one laptop or whatever?
yeah, yeah. So it's the district actually was requested a ransom to pay a ransom.
Huh. Yeah.
Very cool map. I actually read a study that actually 1 in 3 school districts have experienced some kind of cybersecurity attack, but a lot of them don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the critical things that you said was that it's everyone's responsibility.
Absolutely.
If you have a device, we are entrusting that entry point with you as a staff member or a student. And so you have to understand that it is your responsibility. That's why we do these things. Yes, they can be annoying and disruptive at times, but it is in the effort to make sure that our infrastructure maintains its integrity. And so everybody's responsibility, everyone's responsible. I've always talked about shared responsibility models. That's the only way to protect, is to make sure that everyone's doing their due diligence. And I think the phishing simulations have been helpful, but I think we're trying to elevate even now. We're doing some other things that we don't talk about that are also critically important, but I think that notion that it's everyone's responsibility is key.
Shelley, if I accidentally click on a phishing scam, I'm sent to training. How about our students? What are our students doing if they fall victim to a district-led phishing example?
We don't have anything in place for students yet.
Okay. So I feel our parents do a great job in the district teaching about, internet usage, appropriate usage, but what we can tailor towards our students, in addition to our staff doing the retraining, that if our students fall victim as well, obviously great appropriate.
Students are actually part of the simulation, but we haven't required training, and actually, they're pretty good at passing. From what I've seen.
They're better than us.
Yeah. In most things.
And a lot of our devices are out of our control, right? Because they're on their own devices and have their own access to their phones or whatever and so forth, which is a little challenging. But I think it might be interesting to see if we can put something out there, because it's a super important skill to learn, right? Like in life skills right now, it's great to learn all the other great things that we teach in curriculum, but this is a super important one. This is becoming more and more a problem, so I would be up for finding a way to help students learn this. So, great.
I've got a question, and it might be off base because this is way over my.
We know.
Yeah.
Is there anything cybersecurity with the kids' phones? When they're in school using our system or whatever you call it, network?
Do you want to defer to you?
The short answer is yes. So on a very basic level, sorry, if they connect to our wireless, then we are deciding what they get access to, and that all ends up happening both at our ITC and here based on that device we call a firewall. So we can guide, throttle their traffic, that type of stuff. But for most kids, and unfortunately the casualty of living in Granville with a giant hill, poor cell reception, almost all of our kids do connect to our wireless because our cell reception in the buildings is so poor. So we can do some things, but once the student leaves our wireless, they're 100% on their own.
Right. And I'll just ask it because it comes up, and it probably has nothing to do with security, but constantly asked by visiting parents, family about no Wi-Fi connection. And is that because of the topography and of Granville?
That I'd have to know more about.
Okay.
We do provide like Wi-Fi. The guest network we intentionally turn off during the day because our kids abuse it. So from 7 to I believe 3 o'clock, the guest Wi-Fi, with the exception of this building, is turned off. That's just so our students connect to their student network rather than this open guest network where they can be anonymous. After 3 o'clock until the next morning, and then on weekends, we provide guest wireless in every room, every common space, and that doesn't require any kind of login. So maybe.
So if somebody's coming to watch a basketball game, they shouldn't have any issue being able to get on as a guest?
They should not. At some point, we might be limited. For example, if we take the stadium, there really isn't wireless in the stadium.
Right.
People next to the press box might get the added bonus of having wireless, but that's completely accidental. Inside of our gymnasiums and our common space, most of those have 2 high-capacity access points. Right now, we should be able to accommodate somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 users. So I would think that would account for most of our guests.
You might be ignorant like me and just don't know how to figure all that out.
Well, but it's also possible that, we've made a mistake at some point and we've misconfigured something. So if you ever hear something like that, hey, for example, we heard about, our music department tonight. OMEA is a huge event. That was a surprise to me. We had so many people at that event that we actually ran out of IP addresses that I would normally assign, and we had to scramble that morning. But that type of event is something where we try to provide everybody access, but if somebody tells me that they don't have access, we do try to respond to it. But we've had situations where we had to make some kind of change just because it might have been different in one way or another, whether that's the number of guests that we had or just something might have happened where we had disabled it the week before and then Glenn being forgetful, forgot to turn it back on. There are a lot of different things that could have happened.
Thank you very much. We appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you.
Next, we have Brittany, who is going to provide the monthly financial report and a little bit about her department's security posture as well.
Okay, I'm just going to start off the monthly financial with a couple of slides that tie into the cybersecurity world. With a lot of payments going electronic these days, purchasing controls have changed and adapted just like everything else in the cyber world. So just want to talk through some of those and how those tie in. So first I'll talk about purchasing controls. So as a district, we are required to have purchase orders, and the purchase order essentially checks that there are funds available. So no payment is going to be made if there's not a purchase order. So that, really the budget's the highest level of control, and then the purchase order. So there's budget checking. It goes through multiple levels of approval based on the building or department that is purchasing. And then The last piece is the vendor validation. So there is a requirement that we receive a W-9, which gives us a federal tax ID number. That's what triggers us to enter a new vendor. And then I'll talk about Bonefish here in a minute, but then that also gives us a notification if a new vendor is set up. Because a lot of purchasing controls are also in place related to fraud and internal controls versus a lot of what the cybersecurity world is more like external threats. So keeping that internal component in mind as well. Next is payment of the actual invoices. So like I said, if there's not a PO, that invoice is not going to be paid right off the bat. The invoice itself also requires multiple levels of approval to make sure that the product or service was received, and then it comes through 2 levels of approval at the treasurer's office level as well. Making sure that we have the correct vendor that we're paying, the correct dollar amount, those kinds of details are what we're looking for at our level. And then finally, actually issuing the check or the ACH. So ACH is a way of paying electronically, and the way it works with vendor payments is that a file is generated out of our accounting system, and that is sent, actually manually uploaded. It's not an automatic process that is manually uploaded to the bank. And so then that will lead into bank controls, which we'll talk about next. And then finally, in terms of purchasing controls, we use a system called Bonefish, and this software is actually used on the payroll side and on the invoice side, and it checks for different risk factors, and it ranks each transaction based on those risk factors. So I look at the highest ranked risk factors on every check run, and it checks for things like it'll compare an address of a vendor on the accounting side to an address in payroll. So that's, again, checking for some internal controls to make sure somebody hasn't gone in and set up a fake vendor, that kind of thing. And then it also handles our federal compliance checking. So anytime we're using federal funds, we have to verify in a variety of sources that that vendor is allowable under the federal guidelines. So it handles all of that as well. On the payroll side, there's other components that it checks for. So it's a really nice system, and it's fairly cheap in terms of cybersecurity control softwares go. Then on the bank side, you typically think about multi-factor as being like the highest level of security, but our bank went away from multi-factor and uses what is called a secure browser. So the secure browser is specific to the user as well as to the device. So that browser has to be installed for every device that an individual user is using. A specific activation code is required when that browser is installed. It's limited to free uses, has to be reset after a certain number of days. So really that, and then there's also a PIN that's unique to that user to log into the bank. So that is the security around actually sending payments to the bank. So that ACH file can only be sent by users with the browser installed on that device.
How many people have that in the district?
So there's 3 in the treasurer's office, and then mainly the building secretaries, and their only permissions in the bank are for deposits.
Yep.
So they would have access to a majority of this, but there's just 3 of us in the treasurer's office that would have access to everything. Then once you're actually in the bank, you've loaded the file, there's multi-level approvals required in the bank as well. So every ACH, every wire payment has to be approved multiple times. And at a certain dollar threshold, the bank will do a third verification. And so they'll call the office to confirm the payment. And the final piece of this that I just want to throw out there that we're investigating is a software that will actually check bank account information of vendors against like a known database. So it's going to go out there and it's going to say, yes, this account is associated with Granville schools. So this kind of software would really be helpful as we're getting more and more vendors set up with electronic payment, it's a good way to check that you're getting the correct information right off the get-go. It would also be beneficial when a vendor contacts us saying that their account has changed. Because both of those to check manually is pretty labor intensive, quite honestly, to get a hold of the right person and to even know that you're talking to a legitimate person at the company. And then the final piece that has been around for quite a while is positive pay, and this is more related to check payments and old school fraud, I would call it, where people are trying to deposit or cash fraudulent checks. And so positive pay, we send a file to the bank every time we run checks that says we issued a $100 check to XYZ company. And then and it provides the check number, the dollar amount. So then when XYZ company goes to cash that check, it's going to come back, check against our file, say, yep, that matches. Any variance from that file is sent to us, and we have to approve those manually by 12 p.m. every day, provide any changes that are necessary or the justification for why it's okay or not. And so that's the final check on checks. So that covers everything that's, let's say, specific to the treasurer's office in addition to what Shelley and Glenn discussed at the district level.
How often do we still use paper checks or whatever that are sent out versus ACH? Can we convert most of our vendors, or are there a lot that's still paper checks?
There's still a lot that are paper checks, mainly due to the fact that we set up so many new vendors. So Kim and I looked at it, and like in last calendar year, we set up 2 new vendors per business day. Like that's how many vendors we are setting up. There are some districts who require you to provide ACH information to get set up as a vendor. I think our staff might have a problem with that if I said, hey, you need to get ACH information. But then also, in this day and age, and based on issues that people have had, it's then I get that ACH information, and now I have to go verify that account number. And how do you do that? Probably based on the contact that you're dealing with, which is typically a salesperson. Salesperson doesn't have the account information. So then you're going to get redirected. So quite honestly, there for a while, I was like, yes, let's get as many vendors set up with ACH as possible. And now I'm kind of hitting the brakes a little bit on that maybe electronic payments aren't as secure. Maybe checks are the way to go. So yeah, there's a mix of both, to answer your question.
Okay.
Any other questions before we jump into the rest of the financial report?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so starting with our cash balance, I talked last month about how the cash balance for February compared to last February was relatively close. All year we've had a pretty significant increase in our cash balance compared to that month of the previous year. But with February, we had a big timing variance of our property tax payments. But if you look at March, that has now caught up. So that the blue bar, which represents the current year, is now well above the gray bar for last year. So just wanted to point that out because we talked about that last month. So that is the big highlight for March, was the property tax settlement. And that's where you can see the $1.9 million over last year under local taxes. Then looking at that though year to date, so that takes out the timing issue. There's only a difference of $83,000 in local taxes. So that's a combination of the income tax being down over prior year, and then property taxes being up slightly, which we expected with the reappraisal, and the small amount of inside millage will give us a little bit of an increase over prior year. And then all other revenue, that includes the decrease of the return of advance due to ESSER in the previous year, and the increase that we've seen in interest earnings in this year. So over on the right, after adjusting for those 2 items, revenue is actually up closer to $885,000. That's more of the apples to apples comparison.
There's been a bunch of conversations at the state level in terms of property tax increase relief and so forth, and I don't know if anything's actually happened there with some of that. And my sense was it wouldn't impact us much anyway. I don't know if you have a perspective on some of that recent proposed legislation.
Yeah, so that was trying to get pushed through before, because there's a majority of counties are on a reappraisal for 2023, like we saw in Licking County. So that's why there was such a push to get legislation passed prior to property tax bills going out in January. So that did not happen. So I have not heard of those bills going anywhere at this point.
It was also just mostly homestead relief or something along those lines.
The Senate had one version, the House had another. Shocking.
Yeah, but no, we haven't heard it recently, and it's not going to impact our revenues.
Right, so in terms of immediate impact, no, because a majority of property owners in Granville wouldn't have seen a significant increase in their tax bill if their home value increased at the same rate as the average across the district. Long-term, potentially, that could have an impact, because if values get rolled back, that compounds over time, of course.
Yeah.
But yes, it would not have impact property owners in Granville like it would have in other districts within Licking County.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to expenditures. Just for the month of March, really not a lot to talk about here. We're pretty much in alignment with last year, just continuing to see the increase in salaries, and that's again staff that we added that are new for this year that weren't here last March, as well as base increases in steps for all other staff. Year to date, same story on salaries and benefits. Purchase service continues to have some timing variance there with utility payments and the double up in July that we had between the two custodial contracts as well. And then of course the transfer under all other expenses. So on the right again, after adjusting for those one-time transfers, the apples-to-apples comparison is actually $1.6 million in an increase over prior year. That's much more in alignment with where we would expect to see at this stage in the fiscal year. No change to how, from last month, on our COVID-related funds, we're really getting down to the wire here on those. But I would point out the additions, let me go back, the additions there tiny at the bottom. The Lexia ST Math, Dibbles M class, that we actually paid one of the invoices related to that, so that middle bar there just has a tiny amount left for some science and reading PD that is encumbered. When we get that invoice, we'll get that paid, and then that revenue stream will, fall off the graph, and we'll be that much closer. And then we'll just have left the salaries for summer intervention and the intervention position at the elementary, and our contracts pay out through August, so we'll continue to see that. Speaking of the capital projects fund, that was completed over spring break, so I would anticipate by next month, hopefully having this paid out as well.
Do we anticipate any other significant projects this summer that can't be handled by the PI fund that would require this, or?
Yes, so we are anticipating, actually one of the agenda items, which I'll just talk about now, for the purchase of the digester, we're actually going to handle that as a transfer. So we're going to have language added, and I apologize for not having that on the agenda in advance. We wanted to handle that as a transfer as well, just so that all of those capital expenses are going to fall under the transfer line, so that we can do better comparison year over year instead of making adjustments all the time.
Right. But it doesn't fit in the PI budget.
Right, because our PI budget is set and established really at the beginning of the fiscal year, so in July, and usually those funds are spent in that summer. So we've pretty much spent all of our PI funds by this point in the year. So that's how we're going to fund that. And then we have one other project that may be upcoming, depending on getting some quotes from some vendors and the timing of that. we may approve another transfer yet this year for that project. And then for fiscal year '25, we have a couple of, again, larger HVAC projects that we'll handle in a similar method. And all that has been worked into the forecast as well, so it's not going to hurt the cash balance. Because we've known for a while that the PI budget has not been able to keep up with the rate of inflation and the age of our buildings and equipment.
Is there kind of a rationale between when you choose to transfer things from the capital fund versus using the base PI? Like which ones qualify for what, or how do you know?
No, so the way, in the example of the digester, it's just because the PI funds are already used for this year, so that's why we're doing it as a transfer from the general fund. For this HVAC project versus other projects, we just did this one because it was a way to have one project be the amount of the transfer versus having 25 little $10,000 projects paid that way, honestly. So it's just an analysis of, okay, what projects are what dollar value and what makes the most sense to make all the numbers work.
I think it's working as it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've come to the portion of the meeting for public comments. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public. For the purpose of conducting the school district's business, it is not to be considered a public community meeting. There's a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. See Board Policy BDDH-R, public participation in board meetings. If anyone would like to address the board, please feel free. Please give your name and address, and you have up to 3 minutes. Thank you. Board discussion? Would you like to kick us off with anything, Mr. Brown?
Well, I think I will reiterate again from the enrollment report the importance of the facility master planning process. And in some of the reporting that I think you just saw, we have a little bit of a longer runway, but I think that only gives us more time to plan effectively, and that's a gift. And so let's take advantage of it fully and make sure that the community process is robust and satisfies that need to capture public sentiment around the eventuality of growth, because we know that there is a large project on the horizon.
Right.
So there's no ambiguity around that. So I think that's another important talking point. The only other thing that I would add is we didn't talk about it much or even promote it, but the school district was a 5-star designated school district. We got an award from the state of Ohio related to the new system. We didn't really talk about it much, but just wanted the board to be aware of it.
Great. 5 stars by the state rating is really cool and all and things like that, but like I rank a lot higher. Some things I've heard recently about an SDL class. And I didn't unfortunately get to attend it and things like that, but it was the first year that this class is run, and it was just really amazing to hear the stories of the students that were impacted by this, where they really started the year defining their own projects and what was important to them, and ultimately ended up holding a TED Talk style event. A lot of community members, classmates, parents, but also others that attended, and I heard it was just spectacular, and he's actually kind of leading, I think, to an enrollment growth in that class in the future years. So maybe you have more details on that, but I heard great reviews.
The only thing I would add is that there is a video of the evening. It was called SDL Luminaries, and there will be a video that they're working on editing so that it can be distributed widely.
Yeah, thanks for passing it along.
Yeah.
Right. I also saw a great video recently about a SDL conference right, which really drove home to me with some great comments from staff members who this is transformational for, and students and things like that. Of course, we have some great long-standing examples here of how this really positively affects kids, and I'm looking forward to that catching on and continuing to grow across the district. So it's just more great examples at every turn.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Hinton and I attended that SDL Summit. Next year in March, the SDL Summit will be held in Granville, so we'll have people from around the country coming to us to talk shop, so to speak, but also see a lot of the wonderful things that our kids do when given the ability to have some autonomy over their learning. And so, Mr. Redding, Mr. Browder, Ms. Weiss, so many people, E.B. Smith, Mrs. Smith, all these people have given students the opportunity to really show what they're passionate about and engaged in. And I think we get impressed by our students all the time.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
Based on the Wolpert report, I know she didn't give any concrete conclusions or suggestions, but it kind of looked like to me our runway is 29, this school year 30, to address our student population and our building sizes.
I would say that's pretty accurate right now. Once we get an idea of when water and sewer availability are in certain areas, we'll be able to put a more definitive pin on the calendar and work backwards. But I think that right now, that's fairly accurate. We're gonna see a little bit more with the 100 additional students projected with the Willow Bend project. That is, like, they're digging basements right now. So that we'll see those students in that in-between, but the large-scale projects, I think, have a longer runway because of the lack of water and sewer availability. But yeah, short answer, yes.
Do you know what the house price target is for the Willow Bend neighborhood?
We do not have that target. We can try and, Karen might have that.
Yeah.
I know that she reached out to Rockford Homes.
The analysis of cooperative strategies is really great, but better yet is the work that Brittany has done, really getting granular around these things, right? Because it really matters, how many houses per acre, and it really matters what the cost of the house is, and so many other things that have important financial and enrollment implications that I think we can get a lot more granular based on our local knowledge here to make forecasts. But it's nice to know it's not next year, but we know it's coming for sure.
Yeah, I think that the information, I hope, is really, really helpful for you all, because, like, what's most important is what you guys are doing, boots on the ground, and what you're doing locally, and how you understand the community locally, and how you can see what's coming and who's involved, So as long as cooperative strategies is still helpful to you, and the data is information that is good for you and good for, the future planning in the fall that we're gonna all be doing, that's great. But you definitely, I feel like you guys are doing more of the important work, I don't know. More of the useful work to me, so.
And that's their final report?
For this year, yeah.
Do we have a third year yet?
We're gonna have another contract that will go another 3 years, potentially.
Okay. And will their capacity planning work be a part of the facility master plan, or are they gonna do that again?
The Fanning and Howie will actually have a different type of review where they will look at all of our mechanicals. They will examine lifespans.
Okay.
They'll put together a more granular look from an architectural and engineering perspective.
Not
So
just
it will,
space.
correct, it will not just be space.
Okay.
It will actually feed probably more of the PI conversation that we have every year, and the capital projects fund transfer.
And I believe, if I'm correct, that they can do the capacity study
Yeah.
type of work, but since we
Yeah.
just had that done,
Yeah.
we'll provide them with that
Yeah,
data so
fantastic.
that they're
Yeah, that's
not in
great.
there
Yeah.
measuring classrooms and all that kind of
right.
stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good, that's nice to use it that way.
Yeah.
One other question about that presentation that's more for you, though, is the Denison annexation and the apartments are going in, right? It's going to be a little road in there and so forth. It's going to be great for the community, great for Denison. I wanted to confirm or ask if that is officially on the tax rolls for property tax, or in what formal mechanism that's compensated for?
It
There won't be
is.
many students, but.
That will be run as a commercial entity, much like the Granville Inn. They own it, but they're using a different operating system, so those units will be on the tax rolls. Commercial tax rolls.
Well, thank you very much, Denison.
Yes.
Good, yeah, it's fantastic.
I just wanted to add, I'm encouraged that, as we keep saying, a longer runway, but encourage the community this fall to, we need to be planning ahead, and we'll need your participation this fall. We can't wait till it hits us.
Yeah.
And I think the district does a very good job of trying to stay ahead of the curve if it's at all possible. And I just want to emphasize with the community, we have a great opportunity here to help, even though we are kind of biding some time, hopefully. But we need to take advantage of the whole facilities planning this fall when it happens, and encourage everybody's participation. The other thing I'd just like to add is, I know you're talking way above my pay grade, but I really appreciate the report on cybersecurity, and also what Brittany's doing. I think it's wonderful to know that we're keeping up and there's things in place. And personally, I also get very intrigued when we can't talk about it.
It's a good sign.
Yeah, it sounds like something 007 but I get that, and I appreciate it, and God knows I don't want to be knowing that. You don't want me to know something. So, but no, I've enjoyed and am enjoying all the different departments that, Jeff, that you're encouraging to come and share with us. It helps me out a lot. And I'm sure people zooming in on the meetings are learning things that they have an opportunity that maybe they weren't aware of, like what we do with cybersecurity and some of the things that Mr. Carpenter talked about, transportation, that I didn't realize went into that. And I think it's great for the community and also for the board. So thanks for that participation and all the hard work you all do.
Yeah, the Wolpert report is a snapshot of right now. What could shorten the runway?
If a municipality were to allow annexation and water sewer were very close in proximity, that could accelerate that plan drastically. Yeah, so again, when she puts all the caveats on the front page, the other thing I think that will drastically impact things, if interest rates drop, we're gonna see a lot of homes sell and turn over. And so there are a lot of factors that go into that work, but I think water and sewer availability is a key to new homes being built. And if there is a property annexed into another municipality with those amenities available, that can drastically change what you just saw.
Yeah, and it changes kind of the steepness of the curve, right? If you've got one development at a time every 5 years, that's one thing, but if you have 5 happening in 1 year, right, not only do you get a steep curve from a building perspective, but you also get more of a bubble, right, which we're kind of facing right now with the Park Trails kids sort of moving through the system. We've got these bubble classes, which is fortunately giving us capacity, right? But if you have too big of a bubble pushing through the system, you just end up with real challenges getting the staffing and buildings and all that kind of stuff to work out, right? Right. So that's a good point.
I think, next year at this time, I would love for the community in general to say we went through a very robust planning process, and when growth hits us, we know what the school district's response is going to be. That would be very nice to have that socialized in the entire community, because all that does is put people's fears at ease. and they say, I was part of the process, I understand their approach, the methodology and the thinking behind it, and I understand what the next steps might be. That would be very important for people to understand. And whenever that happens, yeah, the approach has been discussed.
Great.
Okay?
I wanted to add, I attended the last athletic booster meeting, and I think this is kind of exciting. The boys lacrosse team has been accepted into a league. The girls are already in a league, girls lacrosse. So this year, the boys will be participating in their awards, but next year as a whole, they'll have a conference. It includes Johnstown, Licking Valley, John Glenn. It's basically all the non-Columbus schools in the area that play boys lacrosse. So I think that's great for our kids. And Brittany, you can help me out with this. Josh Duvall gave us a report on the athletic complex scoreboard, and it looks like the pledges for the scoreboard are going along really well.
Yeah, I think we are about 50,000 short of the whole project, including installation, electric, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and he sounded,
Yes, and I know he has several other meetings. still
right,
lined up.
right, and I think there's a possibility that they can address some of the other varsity scoreboards as well, if the sponsorship continues as well as it's going. But the athletic complex scoreboard will be addressed this year. And I think there's some really neat opportunities that aren't just athletically driven. That, there's opportunities to do like an evening showing a movie. There's ways that the band can use it. I think there's going to be some academic component with the students that'll help with like sports marketing and those types of things. So I think what I really like about it is it's not just a sports thing. There's other things that can be used, and I'm really proud that we do that we incorporate kind of a well-rounded approach to things, not just this is all about sports or this is all about arts or all about academics. It can cross all those worlds. And I think that's one of the great things about Granville.
So will that be an entirely private funded capital expenditure, or is?
Yeah, so the way that that's gonna work, it's similar to the athletic complex project where the district is going to front the money, so to speak, and the pledges have been made over multiple years. This one is gonna run specifically just through the athletic fund itself, rather than having a separate fund like we did for the athletic complex project. It's just a much smaller scale. Plus, once it's paid back, that still can be, the ads can still be sold after that initial payback period. So any ads sold from then on will stay in that athletic fund and can be used for, to support the department for other needs.
So I've got other guys, whatever. Great. Look forward to watching a movie there.
Anything else from any of the members? Action agenda.
Okay. 10.01, we have one board policy adoption for reading skills assessments and intervention.
So moved.
Second.
And I talked a little bit about this. This is related to the science and reading policy and some of the recent changes at the State Department.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
All right.
10.02 is the communication support contract for next year, 24-25, with Kane Learning.
So moved.
Second?
So this will be the third or fourth year that we've engaged with Kane Learning. They're currently supporting our transition to a new website that hopefully will go live by July 1. So a lot of the posts and social media items that they put out there are them working behind the scenes and our staff getting great stories to them to put out there. So we appreciate their engagement and partnership with us.
And Mr. Brown, I'm assuming that Glenn's departments, since we brought up this whole cybersecurity tonight, that you're involved with them as to what they're doing with the website, or is there? I'm just, because I don't know, so I'm asking a question. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a technology department initiative. It's
Right.
more district office. If I had to pinpoint one person, it's Janelle King. We also use Kane Learning as outsourced resources, so it really is a team effort trying to get all the content moved, which is the stage we're at now, trying to transition everything, because we would like to know that the content we're moving between the old site and the new site is up to date. And
Yeah.
we won't know all of it. We can clean some of this stuff up after the July 1 timeframe, but we're trying to get it as close as possible.
I appreciate your indulgence about my questions, but I'm learning too, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, they've been doing a great job on all the various channels, getting the social media posts out there and things like that, so that's fantastic. What's an approximate annual cost for that contract?
33 or 34,000.
Thank you. Yeah. Commissioner Thackfors.
Will do.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Okay, 10.03 is the approval of the notification to LACA that we intend to leave that consortium as of July 1 of 2025, and there will be a subsequent approval of joining Meta Solutions that is Columbus-based.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. The rationale really is what services they support. When we transitioned to Power School, they did not necessarily have the staff to support that Power School transition, so we ended up partnering with Meta anyway. EFP, which is the fiscal software, has already been supported by TCCSA through an independent contract that ran through LACA. So what we're trying to do is move into a situation where we get more support for the operating systems that we utilize.
And we won't be the only district using that out in Lincoln County, correct?
Newark uses them. I anticipate several other groups might also use them.
Meta's done a great job on all the things they've done, and there's another approval here of them. Any significant financial change associated with this transition?
Right now, nothing has been discussed as far as fiscal. We'll get closer to that as we get into the transition.
We did do some analysis based on an initial estimate that they had, and it's almost the exact same.
The only outlier would be the internet providing, which would be a lot cheaper through
Yeah.
Meta.
Connectivity is cheaper.
Yeah.
And better?
Yes.
Yeah. Great.
Take the roll.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
10.04 is the approval of the OHSAA membership resolution for 24-25.
So moved.
Second.
This is our annual approval.
Has there been any increase in membership or anything? Has that changed, do you know?
There was an increase, I think, like 2 years ago. But
Yeah, didn't they do per
Yeah.
sport?
Right, and now I think with the rising costs of officials and all the other things that are occurring, I think they've kept their costs neutral.
Are they doing okay financially too? Because I know they were struggling to kind of find the right model for them. They've kind of used fees and things like that in some new ways, and hopefully that's sustainable for them.
Yeah, they seem, from what I can tell, and adding extra divisions will help.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
In a lot of the Olympic sports, so.
Yeah.
I'll take the roll, please.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Next item is the Licking County, or Licking Regional ESC contracts for the 24-25 school year, which includes general service contract and preschool services.
So moved.
Second.
This is our annual approval of those contracts and seats that we hold with the ESC.
How many preschool kids do we have? I guess that was in the.
It ebbs and flows.
Handful?
You can go from anywhere 12 to 32
Okay.
in, different years.
Great, we have an option there.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Okay, 10.06 is the LACA Internet Service Provider contract.
So moved.
Second.
And that is a one-year contract as a gap, so that we can get to the following July and then transition to Meadow.
Any questions? Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds? Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
10.07 is the creation of the board representative appointee to the Community Improvement Corporation, Granville Area Community Improvement Corporation. This is really just creating,
So moved.
Second.
this is creating the appointment so that we can fill it. We'll fill it right now and then through an application process. And then in January, we will probably move it into our organizational meeting where we allocate people to a variety of different boards on our behalf. So it'll become an annual appointment.
And did we already have something where we officially approved the formation of it last month? am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. That's great. I think we're heading in the right direction with this. Hopefully we'll find a great person to fill that role.
I would just like to add that this is in partnership with the village as a chamber, as the other entities partnering to form the initial board for the CIC.
Not yet the township?
Not yet, they wanted to focus on the JED and the overlay, getting through that and those hurdles, because there's been some issues that they've been working through with the community on that. And my understanding is that they're having a joint township village meeting on May 1st to potentially finally ultimately approve the JED, so hopefully once they get through that, they can reconsider.
Okay. Good luck to him.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
10.08 is the approval of the contract to purchase an aerobic digester for GHS GMS.
Second.
And we made these students wait this
I
long.
know.
Tonight.
I'm so sorry.
Yes, well, they have to wait a little bit longer because the vote is not in. So, who issued the second?
I did.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we had students from Mr. Redding's classroom come and present to us the concept of an aerobic digester, which would be put into the common space to digest food and other consumable waste that would then become compost that could be bagged and sold, and they had a great presentation. Not going to do it justice. They've been sitting here for a long time. But I think the cost has been significantly modified through discussions with Earthpeak and with potential donations, and us signing on might cause additional donations to come in. So I anticipate that the cost will go down from the roughly $27,000 that we're investing in this process.
So that's before potentially other grants and things like that?
Yes.
Great.
So I'd like to add that we are also throwing into this resolution
Yes.
with a vote, the transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund to purchase, and then any grants or sales or whatnot, after that would then just go back into the general fund to offset that cost of the transfer.
What she said.
Yeah, it was a fantastic presentation, a great concept, really great to see our students inspired and coming forth with so many ideas like that. And it's great that the capital cost has gone down a lot with some potential for generating revenue in the future. I also kind of, from a sustainability of a labor and application perspective, I'm hopeful that we'll find ways that that's enduring, right? Sometimes when passionate students move on and things like that, we have a gap to fill. But as I've seen, every time a passionate student moves out, we get more ones coming in behind them. So thanks for keeping that up. And
Talk
trying to fire.
positively to your peers.
Recruit some freshmen that are excited about it and make sure they're involved in the process.
And I'd just like to add, they made a great presentation at the lunch club. They were very impressed, so thank you for doing that.
Want to step it up for 27,000?
Then
We're looking at Rotary to start helping out.
We would need the motion if they did.
Thanks.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Cron?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good work.
We'll call George. All right, 10.09 is the approval of a job description for the Assistant Athletic Director.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is probably one of the longest discussions I've had in my tenure in Granville. We talked about an Assistant Athletic Director almost 10 years ago. Yeah. And that position hopefully is finally coming to fruition to support the large volume of opportunities that we provide for our students in the area of athletics. So, and the requirement for supervision. So, I'm excited about moving forward and getting a talented pool for Josh to select with the help of Mr. Hinton.
Great, I mean, it feels great to offer that many opportunities to our students and things like that. Is it 20 or something? How many actually sports now?
If you count middle school, it'll be up to 40.
Wow, yeah,
I
43.
think there's 31 varsity.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I have to agree with Jeff, long before my tenure, but being involved with the athletic boosters, it's something that we've been talked about that it's just needed.
We've tried to shuffle around a lot
Yeah.
between different roles and things like that, but that's not what it is, to kind of make sure we have support for the kids at the event, so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Cron?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Consent agenda, 11.01 through A through D.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to call your attention to a couple of things. So we have a couple of donations related to the Planet Trail that is a byproduct of the physics and astronomy class. Sadie Landry and Mr. Bate have put together a proposal that will go in between the station and Moots Run on the bike path. So we're excited about those donations. Again, Kiwanis Foundation stepping out.
Look at them just stepping up.
And PTO, the sixth grade rocket project. I call your attention to the hiring of Keith Hinton as our football coach, as we've previously communicated. Jacqueline Walker was in the audience. Jacqueline Walker was an employee several years ago, went home, raised children, and now is coming back and actually will be teaching in the same classroom she left. So we're happy to have her coming back and joining us. Mr. Knott was a driver for us for many years. Now he's going to be subbing for us, which we appreciate. And I think the most important one on here is recognition with appreciation of Terry Applegate, who has been an educator for 43 years and many years in Granville. Fantastic first grade teacher, and she has made the decision to retire. So we appreciate her service to this community and the hundreds of kids she's educated and helped learn to love to read. Yeah, fantastic.
Mr. Brown, I hope you don't mind. I just want to commend Mr. Lofton.
I was going to mention that.
Oh, yeah.
For stepping up as a volunteer so we could have, is it middle school softball, 8th grade softball? Or
No, I think it's JV.
JV?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry about, but that's great, just showing a commitment of the staff to the kids to make sure they could have a team.
Yeah.
Because we weren't, I guess we weren't.
We were
able to find a
short-handed,
coach.
for sure.
So, appreciate everybody on this
Yeah.
list, but
Yeah. No, great call out, thank you.
take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Item 12.01, approval of the March 2024 financial report.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
Great.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Item 12.02 is approval of the now resolution to Hickory Valley Sod Farm LLC.
So moved. Second.
This again was a purchase over $3,000, and you saw in the slides that if there's not a purchase order, you aren't getting paid, so.
Yeah.
This one was really just a communication issue between departments and who was handling it, so.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Y'all, I had every single slide